Hello, my name is Beth Wooster. I am the ESCA Federal Programs Administrator for the Nebraska Department of Education. And Tom Geschel is not able to join us for this recording, but I'm going to have Dottie introduce herself in just a second.
Hi, I'm Dottie Hoisman. I am also part of the federal programs team, so we're glad that you're here. Sorry, I tried to get out already. Okay, here we go. We're going to have a little bit of fun with this. So if you have a piece of paper and maybe want to have the piece of paper handy and write some notes and then score yourself as we go, a little bit along the lines of Jeopardy. So we're going to have some categories for you in regards to time and effort because that's what this session is all about. So it's general knowledge questions, the who, types of time and efforts, odd questions, and final question. So we're going to start out with some general knowledge questions. So general knowledge for 200. So get ready to get your buzzer ready or your pencil ready to write it on your sheet of paper. First question, what does T&E stand for? And I'm going to take just a short pause for you to write that answer. If you're thinking this is easy, it is so far, and hopefully the rest of it will be easy as well. Answer for this one is time and effort. Now for a little bit tougher question, general knowledge for 400. Which employees must districts collect a time and effort from? So think about that in your own district, whether you're the business manager, the principal, the superintendent, maybe even the Title I teacher that's watching this, or the class size reduction teacher. Which employees have to do this? And I kind of gave a little bit of a hint there. Answer would be all employees, not contractors, whose salary is paid in whole or part with federal funds and used to meet a match or cost share requirement. So when we say all employees, that includes the full-time, your part-time, it would include stipends and substitute teachers. So stipends for staff as well as sub-teachers. So remember, when we say not contractors, contractors would go into different categories, so you don't claim them on time and effort. Now on to general knowledge for 600. I think pretty soon Jeopardy will be calling me to host their show, just in case you're wondering. Question, when do employees and employers sign off on time and effort documents? So we've got these great time and effort documents. When do employees sign them and employers? Hopefully, you know the answer that's always after the fact. So make sure it's later than what the semester was or what the month was, whatever the case may be. So very important that you don't sign those prior to the work being accomplished. Okay, general knowledge for 800. Question is, who collects the time and efforts? So we have these great forms. Now what do we do with them? So the answer is a variety of people can and do collect the time and effort forms. Definitely the district and school office should keep those in a file. Bookkeeper should keep those so you understand that who's being paid with what funds. I know a lot of Title I teachers also keep that information in a notebook or in a file that they have and keep track each year as well, so they keep a copy. Also, ND fiscal and programmatic auditors will also look at that. So think about when you get audited, which is typically once every 3 years, they will be looking for those time and efforts and double checking those. And then of course, when you do your monitoring reviews with the federal programs team, we also collect those. So we have to have those forms as well. So make sure you collect those from all employees that are being paid with federal dollars. Okay, we're going to the big one, general knowledge for 1,000. What documents must match each other regarding the time and effort documents? So think about what has to match, because we can just put anything we want on the time and effort documents, but we really can't. We have to think about what goes together. So the answer is Your time and effort must match the following. The GMS application. Okay, so you guys know if you're a targeted school in your GMS application, you are putting specifically who those people are that are being paid with federal dollars in Title I, Title II, Title IV, and any others that may, Title III, whatever. So make sure that whatever you put on the time and efforts, it also matches your GMS application, which is very, very critical. So that's really step one. So you've got this time and effort, and we've looking at GMS to make sure it matches. The next one is NSSRS. So that's the Student and Staff Record System. So think about how that matches. You need to match, the name needs to match. So if it's Sally Jones, she should be in the GMS application. You should have a time and effort from Sally Jones. Her salary should be accurate in GMS as well as in NSSRS, and the percentages all have to match. So if she's in NSSRS as being a 50% person for Title I, let's say, then that time and effort should also match that 50%. And then last but not least is your local accounting records. Think about what the bookkeeper is doing. Do you have Sally Jones in that bookkeeping system that Sally is 50% being paid with Title I funds or Title II funds or whatever the account is that she's using, whatever federal code is being used? So all of that is critical. And we'll talk more about that with some questions coming up. Okay, so now we're going to the Who, and if I could have found some music like Who Are We and maybe sang that song to you, I would have, but I couldn't, and I'm not a very good singer. So we'll keep going. Here we are with category 2, the Who. The Who for 200. My class size reduction teacher thinks she needs to do a time and effort. Does she? If so, what kind? So I'll give you time to answer that. And if you are paying that class size reduction teacher with Title IIA funds, which is an allowable use, she must do a time and effort. Because she has a single cost objective, she can do a semi-annual time and effort. And we'll talk more about what those different semi-annual time and efforts mean down the road. So hold on to that thought if you're questioning that. Now we're going to go to, so we talked class size reduction for this one. Now we're going to switch to the 400 question. And now that Title I teacher is coming to your office and saying, hey, I think I need to do a time and effort. So does he? If so, what kind? Well, if you're paying the Title I teacher with Title IA funds, he must do a time and effort. Again, because he works under a single cost objective, or if he does, he can do a semi-annual time and effort. So class size reduction, Title I. So far, whatever percentage they're being paid, we need a time and effort to show. The Who for 600. Okay, another example. Our school's paraprofessional is coded to Title I for 50% of her time, and 50% of her time is for special education. I don't have to have her do a time and effort since she's paid with 2 federal funds, right? And she's a non-instructional staff member, so if she's not instructional, doesn't matter. So does she need to do a time and effort? Yes or no? Answer is wrong when it comes to, I don't have to have her do one. That's wrong. She does have to do one. A time and effort form must be completed for any staff member being paid with federal funds. If she has a fixed schedule, you can use a semi-annual time and effort with the correct percentages shown for the 2 funding sources and attach her set schedule. And the good news is we'll have examples of that before we end this presentation. Okay, another Who question. So our business manager works with many different grants and doesn't have a fixed schedule, but we are paying her with federal dollars. Because of this, doesn't she have to do a time and effort? Because of this, she doesn't have to do a time and effort, right? So think about that. She doesn't have to do a time and effort. Is that right? Again, the answer is wrong. The time and effort will be different than someone with a fixed schedule, but that business manager does have to do one. So now let's go to the big $1,000 question for the Who. Okay, then going back to that last scenario with the business manager, what does my business manager do to assure her time is accounted for? She completes a PAR. That's a personnel activity report. She completes a daily log by month that shows how many hours per day she works on each of the federal cost objectives that are being used to pay her salary. So, yes, again, she's being paid with federal funds. And remember what we said to start? If anyone's being paid with federal funds, they have to do some sort of time and effort. This one's a little bit different than the semi-annuals that we've been talking about before. Okay, we're going to move on into the types of time and effort forms, and this is all Beth's.
All right. So there's many different types, which Dottie touched on. So types of time and effort for 200. Are there samples of time and effort forms that districts can use? Yes. They're on the NDE website. If you go to the 3 bars on the side, program services and initiatives, then to federal programs. Or if you just have the federal programs website in your frequently viewed spots, you'll be able to find it there. Then you'll go to forms and then time and effort logs. So on the left-hand side, there's a spot for forms and then the time and effort logs. And here's a screenshot of the different types of samples that we have on our federal programs website to help you. All right, types of time and effort for 400. What is wrong with this time and effort? I'll give you a little bit of time to look at it. All right, there's several problems. The first being the percentage equals 125. 50 plus 75 equals 125, not 100%. And you can't be over 100%. Also, there is a watermark that you can see just slightly that says sample across it. Then also the NDE non-discriminatory policy is at the bottom. So our sample that we have out there does have that on there. You'll need to remove it. You'll also need to remove the watermark if you're going to use this form. And then the other problem is it's signed prior to the work being done. It has to be signed after the work is completed. So this time and effort was for first semester. So we would expect to see it signed the end of December or the beginning of January. As long as it's after the work, then it's okay. If it's prior to the work, it doesn't work. All right, types of time and effort for 600. What is wrong with this time and effort? And the answer is nothing. It's actually correct. So, just a trick question. All right, types of time and effort for 600. What is wrong with this time and effort? Do you have the other one? Yeah, there it is. So those two pieces need to go together. And this is an example of they call it either the substitute time and effort or the alternate time and effort. So Nebraska has approved that as long as you have a fixed schedule, you can do the semi-annual as long as the fixed schedule is attached. This person is funded with Title I-A, IDEA, and then also state and local funds. Okay, the answer is nothing. This fixed schedule, time and effort is okay. Okay, types of time and effort for 800. Well, what's wrong with this PAR? Okay. The only thing that's really missing is the district name. All time and efforts do have have to have the district name on it. Otherwise, you've got this dates are after the time. This one is August of 21. It has the percentages across the top. It has the signed after the date or at the end of August. And if the percentages don't equal exactly at the end, so if it's not exactly 50% for general funds and not exactly SPED, that's okay. It can fluctuate slightly. It's just by the end of the year, you want it to average so that general funds would be 50%, SPED would be about 15%, Title 120. So because the schedule fluctuates, there may be some months that the person is really heavily working with SPED, or they're very heavy on Title 2 or Title 1. So this person's an instructional coach. It has a position or their title. It also needs to have that. So you need to have the name. The other thing I actually would say is we should have the name printed on there so that we can tell whose it is. Their signature. Oh, it is. It's Mr. All Around. Okay, I missed it. It's there. But as long as it has the name and then it has the signature, then you're good to go. Okay, types of time and effort for 1,000. I have so many employees that are funded through various grants. How do I keep track of all of it? Well, never fear, we're here to help. Here's an example. You might do a spreadsheet that has it all broke down. It's easier to keep track of it as you go. So spreadsheets are great, and you'll need them for when you're doing when the monitoring is done. You're going to need to be able to document everything. And we always say document, document, document. So this is an example of what you might be able to do. All right. So in summary, certification of actual time worked. There's the semi-annual, there's the alternate time and effort, and then there's PARs. So the what, all of them are the same. They account for the total activity. The when, they're all the same. They have to be after the fact. So the work has to be done before they are signed. They all have to have signatures. Employee and administrator is best. With the PAR, you can get by with the employee or the administrator. Or if an employee were to leave prior to signing, sometimes you can have just the administrator sign and explain why the employee did not sign. The time periods. The semi-annual has to be done at least every 6 months, so one time per semester. And then an alternate time and effort would be, again, every 6 months, at least one time per semester, but you also have to have the schedule attached. A PAR would be monthly. All right, category 4, odd questions. Odd questions for 200. Is all this time and effort stuff really necessary, and is it worth it? It's mandated due to federal funding, and so yes, it is worth it because it keeps you from getting in trouble. Okay, the best advice is get a system in place with your bookkeeper and administrator and teacher so everyone is on the same page and it'll go smoothly. Just get in the habit, if someone has to do it monthly, that at the end of the month, they turn it in. Odd questions for 400. I am paying staff using Title IIA dollars for professional development. Do I have to do anything for time and efforts? Yes, you do. It's a great question, but you do. What you're going to do is it's called a blanket time and effort. And blanket time and efforts are easy. You just would do them by day. So for an example, for a time and effort with a PD is you have staff attending a professional development that starts at 8 and ends at 2. This would be an example. You have the person's name. You need to have the name of what the professional development was. So on our sample, we have professional development name. So if it is for some special training, put the name of what that training was and the date that it happened at the top. Then you'll need to have the names of the staff. You'll need to have them sign in and then have them sign in when they started and when they end. So for this example, Lisa Lewis got there at 8, but she had to leave early. She had to leave at 12 o'clock. So she might not get the full stipend. It might be they're paying per hour. It might be you need to have some way to indicate that they have completed the professional development. And then at the end of the day, the supervisor needs to sign it. So Mr. Todd signed it. He's the principal. Also needs to say if he's the superintendent, the principal. So you need what their role is, and then the date. So this would be an example of it, blanket time and effort. Odd questions for 600. We have substitutes that cover for our Title I teachers, and we don't pay them with federal funds. Do they have to do a time and effort? So they're subbing for a Title I teacher, but they aren't paying with Title I funds. Nope. The key word is they aren't paying them with federal funds. If you're paying for the substitute out of general funds, you do not have to do a time and effort for those substitutes. Odd question for 800. Okay, we have substitutes that cover for our Title I teacher, and we pay them with federal funds. Do we have to do a time and effort? This one's probably pretty easy after the last one. Yes, you do. Put together a summary sheet and at the end of the month or the semester that shows the substitute's name, the dates they subbed, who they subbed for, and the amount paid. Then have an administrator or business manager sign it and date it to show the approval. The other thing is, because usually when substitutes come to the school, they either sign in or they sign out. You somehow have them at the office. So you already have the substitute signature on hand. Just hang on to those, put them in a file, and then you'll have the spreadsheet that is signed by the administrator or the business manager, and you're covered. Odd questions for 1,000. Do I have to do time and efforts for staff paid with ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funding? This is an easy one. Yes, you do. Because the ESSER funds are federal funds, you have to do it. The same requirements take place for these funds as they do with the other federal funds. Okay, so the final question for triple your points. Why care about time and effort requirements? Because it's a federal requirement, which means NDE has to audit the time and effort forms for compliance. The district could be in jeopardy of having to pay back funds if there are questionable costs. So you want to make sure that you have them and you keep them. And you'll want to keep them for 7 years. All right. This should be our time for questions, but since we're doing this as a recording, we're just going to thank you for joining us.